Welcome to Establishing Your Organizational Goals and Objectives. This is a second in an ongoing series of seminars to help you improve your organization. The purpose of this seminar is to increase your knowledge and skills on developing and revising organizational goals and objectives. And really what goals and objectives are, they are the second step as you move toward really sort of realizing your vision and your mission statement. So in the first series, we really talked about making up your mission, promoting your mission, and ensuring that other people see your mission. This here is really where you start to add the meat, where you really start to operationalize what's going on. So as a training goal, when this is over, you'll be able to have your goals and your objectives, which really sort of talk about the activities that you're going to do as you move forward. So what are our objectives? Well, you're going to understand the purpose and importance of organizational goals and objectives. You're going to have the ability to create and revise your organizational goals and objectives. You're going to understand how goals and objectives help your unit fulfill its mission. What is a goal? Well, let's talk about this. A goal, if it's done well, should talk about your long-term targets. They need to be consistent with your organizational values and vision. However, when you come up with goals, try not to create too many goals, because goals are broad statements. Within each goal, there are multiple objectives. So in other words, you want to create goals that will move your organization forward, but you still need to be based in reality. So, for example, you wouldn't say, I'm going to create the #1 astrophysics program, in the history of modern man. I mean, that's just unrealistic, right? I mean, I'm being facetious here, but that's just unrealistic. But certainly, you can make a goal that sort of plays to Kean's themes of excellence and world class. So be cognizant of that as you create goals. My general suggestion for goals is you need somewhere around 3 to 6. Once you get more than 6 goals, then you have to start reflecting on your organization and how it is you can sort of divide your objectives into 3 to 6 goals, because more than that, they're very hard to manage. So what are some of the common organizational problems? Before I get into how to create a goal, I really want to talk about why organizations don't form goals. Sometimes leadership lack vision. So we have leaders that have done their positions for many years, and often they're experts in what it is they do. But these kind of organizations eventually become complacent. Many of them just don't continue to move in a progressive fashion. At all times, organizations should be dedicated toward improvement. And if you're not, then at some point in time, circumstances may hinder your development, and they could have an impact on your organization directly. Other issues related to common organizational problems deal with lack of team spirit. So there are many organizations, they may have a mission statement, but what they don't have is a coordinated effort. And so goals can help you achieve that. And finally, I want to just talk about mission creep. Many organizations, they start out doing activity A and B, and then over time, maybe they're successful. Frankly, sometimes they're not. Other duties get added to them. These organizations, while they're dedicated to doing A and B, are actually, when you look at their work product, are doing C, D, and E. This means that you're not actually accomplishing your mission, and it becomes more difficult to produce goals and objectives from that. So really what you want to do is, to sum up this particular slide, is you want to bring unity to your organization, and you want to ensure that there's a detailed purpose of what you're trying to accomplish. And developing goals. Please click on the link below to activate the worksheet. Print it out, take your time and go through it. And as you complete it, then you'll be able to get some insights. What this sheet really is looking at is goals, and it really helps you sort of focus in on your organization and the types of activities that you're doing. Goal statements describe the expected performance of your organizational unit or your student. So in other words, if you're an academic program, your goals really should be at what will students learn and how will you know students will learn? What are your learning objectives? What are you really trying to get after with the students? And how do you know it? If you're an organizational unit, you want to ask yourself, the big question is, how does your organization perform its service? How well does it perform its service, and how do you know it? As I stated earlier, identifying too many goals means it's difficult to reach, because goals, again, are broad statements. As you develop your organizational goals, you really need to look at what are your primary functions, and that will give you a clue. So again, once you go more than 3 to 5, 6 is the absolute maximum. And make sure you can link your goal to your mission statement. In fact, the mission statement should give you a hint of where your goals come from. And if not, then that means either something's wrong with your goals or something's wrong with your mission statements. But these things must be synthesized. So what are objectives? Objectives are really sort of the meat goals. So it's a way to operationalize your goals. So objectives are measurable. They occur within the time frame. In other words, you put together an objective. There has to be a time frame for when this will be accomplished, whether it's going to be a semester, a year, whether you're going to measure it in months. That all depends on you. But still, you need to ensure that there's a time. And it needs to be aggressive but reachable. So put together, operationalize everything you do and say, I'm just going to keep doing exactly what I'm doing, and then that becomes an objective. That fails the process. This process is really about moving your organization to the next level. If you just simply want to do exactly what you've already been doing, then you won't get the full value of this exercise. So again, really think about it as you do. Need some insight as far as what types of objectives you want to do. Think about what it is you're doing, and think about what it would take to do 5 to 10% more, or to improve by 5 to 10%. Those are usually decent annual benchmarks at which you can for, but they're still aggressive enough so that you would have to give some thought into how that can be accomplished. Let's say you've created a plan that had 5 goals and 5 objectives for each goal. So now you have 25 objectives. What you want to do is you want to make sure that a minimum number of those objectives are met within the time frame of this assessment plan. So if it's annually, you want to try and get 80 to 85% of your plan. And so that way you would know exactly whether or not you're accomplishing what it is you said you were going to accomplish. Now I want to be clear, every objective that you create, you will not accomplish unless the objectives were so minimum that they really didn't sort of serve the exercise of moving your organization to the next level. So be cognizant of that. However, if you only accomplish 70%, I wouldn't necessarily call that a failure, okay? Because what you want to do is look at why you didn't accomplish it. Perhaps, maybe, on the other hand, you set your objectives too high. Again, that often happens. These early years, as you develop your plan and move it into an active format, are really going to be formative. So you're going to make slight adjustments to change as you move forward. Every now and then, let's say you do have 5 goals and 25 objectives. Every now and then, an objective will either become obsolete or unnecessary. And it's okay to take that out of your plan if something does become obsolete. But that needs to be a conscious decision. You can't simply wait till time in which case you're starting to measure your assessment at the end of the time frame of the assessment plan and then go, well, this objective is obsolete. If it becomes obsolete, then there needs to be a conscious effort of it, and it needs to be removed from the assessment plan. You should actually take a quick snapshot of what progress you're making at the 6-month mark. This helps you really sort of formulate how you're going to tackle the second half of the year or the second half of the time frame in which the assessment plan is occurring. And finally, I think, as I mentioned here, please modify your obsolete objective. Either modify or delete. Make a decision, one way or the other. Communication is key. We all work in a large organization. Let me put it this way. Assume that no one knows what you do. That there are folks that just walk through the building and they just don't know what you do. The best way for people to understand what you do is to promote your plan. Just as your mission statement should be somewhere on your wall, you're part of the university, your assessment plan, your goals and objectives should be written out. Every employee should have it. Your supervisor should be familiar with it. Your goals and objectives need to be published. Every person in your organization should have that plan, and any person reporting up the line to the president, to the vice presidents, should have that plan. And always, when you move your plan into action and you're accomplishing your work, it's important that you take credit for it. So use the media. We have a Facebook account here, we have multiple student newspapers, and we have our website. By all means, you need to think in pictures. So if you're accomplishing your plan and it produces a great photo opportunity or a good story, then have a plan to make sure that makes it into the media. I always have a rule of thumb that your program needs to make the news at least once a semester, and at the very least once a year. And you don't wait around for some student to come around and write an interest story. You help pitch those stories to the student newspapers through the Facebook community, and think in pictures. Anything that can create an image that helps communicate what it is that you do, by all means, never miss that opportunity. Take those pictures, promote those pictures, tell your story. This creates validity. It helps control the narrative as you move your plan. That will help you stay on track, in all fairness. You have a plan, okay. But we do live in an unsustainable environment in the sense that things do change. Budgets change, certain things get added. But you still want to stick to your plan. So you have to be strategic here. You want to adapt change if it's needed, if it truly is needed. But you also want to stay true to your mission. So you want to make sure that whenever new duties are added into your organization, that you look at it in a way that you can move it into one of the goals and objectives that you already have. Now, if you're a leader organization and you do have to introduce change, recognize what change does. Change tends to lower morale of employees. It's rare, unless you're going to offer raises to everyone, that change raises morale. Mostly people want to be comfortable in their jobs, which means they want to do the same thing over and over again. That is, common throughout the research. So you want to be cognizant that as you introduce new duties and assignments and new goals and objectives to your staff and team, that morale may flag. You're really going to have to communicate effectively, sort of give them the rationale on why this is important and move that forward. Make people understand that we do live in an era where, cheese gets moved. That famous book, Who Moved My Cheese, really sort of talks about how individuals at work tend to want to be complacent. They want to do the same thing over and over again because that's their comfort zone. They find their own sort of legitimacy by accomplishing the tasks that they know so well. You can change your plan, but you still want to keep the heart of your plan intact. Now, reporting your plan is really simple. Report your plan. Publish it. That's how it becomes legitimate. If you have deans or vice presidents that you report to, ensure that they understand that your plan was important, that you've written it, and that they've read it. I want to thank you for listening to this second seminar. I hope this has been an assistance. Please use all the worksheets that are attached to the bottom of this page. I think this is where you sort of do some critical thinking. I want to thank my producer, Julie Lorraine, for putting this together. And so I just want to thank her for what it is she's done. And I want to thank you for listening, because together we can make Kean even better than it is. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.